Jesse Harlan rode into Dry Forks with dust on his boots, a torn shirt on his back, and one thin bay mare that was worth more than the coins in his pocket, which was to say, anything at all. The town sat low in a wide basin, framed by scrub hills and a pale winter sky that made everything look a little worn. Wood plank sidewalks ran in front of the saloon, the general store, the jail, and a crooked hotel whose sign hung by one nail and creaked in the hot wind. A half-dead cottonwood stood near the edge of town like a thin god who had given up caring. Jesse pulled the mare to a stop beside that tree and watched the place for a long breath, counting what he had and what he could lose. He had come here with one thought: find work, any work, before he had to sell the mare's saddle. He loved the horse, loved the feel of leather under his legs and the quiet way the animal listened, but love did not buy beans or boots. He slid down, patted the mare's warm neck, and looped her reins over the rail in front of the livery. The air smelled of manure, dust, and something sharp and metallic that sat under his tongue like worry. On the notice board outside the sheriff's office, a handbill flapped in the wind. Jesse stepped closer and read it. By order of Fort Reed, any hostile Apache taken alive beyond reservation line to be turned over to Army custody. Bounties paid in cash upon delivery. Below the printed words, someone had added a line in rough hand. Greyhawk swore to take back his blood. He keeps his word. The pencil marks were half-smudged, but the name hit Jesse like a stone dropped in a still trough. Greyhawk. He had heard that name before, years back in another valley. Another mistake. Another narrow escape. Bootsteps scraped behind him. Sheriff Cole bearing a stood in the doorway, hat pushed back, thumbs hooked in his belt. He was not old, but his eyes looked tired, like a man who had watched too many fights he could not quite stop. You looking for trouble, reading that thing so close? Cole asked. Just reading what a man might get paid for, Jesse said. Name's Jesse Harlan. I'm broke and I got two hands. Figured I'd see if this town needed either. Cole studied him, gaze resting on the rip in Jesse's sleeve, on the mare's ribs, on the patched boots. You ride with any outfits? Some. Drifted around. Worked a trail drive out of Abilene. Patched fences for the Preston spread south of here till they ran out of patience or money. Hard to tell which. Cole grunted. Town's tense now. You picked a bad day to be new. He jerked his chin toward the far end of the street. Stage came in this morning with more than mail. 2 Apache girls in the freight wagon. Trader name of Fitch brought them. Says they are raiders, taken in a skirmish. Fort Reed's paying good coin to get him. Cavalry's due by sunset. Jesse's jaw tightened. Where are they? Behind the freight office. Under guard. Cole's tone turned flat. And if Greyhawk's anywhere near, he'll come looking. I don't need a war party riding through Dry Forks. Not again. Again. Cole didn't answer that. He just looked down the street where men clustered in small knots, talking low and quick. Hands hovered a little closer to gun belts than usual. If you want work, Cole went on. Fitch is hiring cheap muscle to stand watch till the soldiers come. Don't get any ideas beyond that. I won't have this town burned because some saddle tramp thinks he can fix the world. Jesse gave a thin smile that did not reach his eyes. World's too big for me, Sheriff. Just trying to keep my own hide in one piece. He turned and walked toward the freight office. Each step felt like it carried a little more weight than the last. The freight yard sat behind a tall plank fence. 2 wagons stood near the loading ramp, wheels crusted with dried mud. One was stacked with crates and a rolled canvas. The other had a short iron bar nailed across the back. Behind that bar, sitting on the wagon bed with their wrists bound in front, were 2 Apache girls. They were young. The older might have been 16, the younger 12. Both had dark hair, braided in simple rows, with loose strands stuck to their cheeks. Their dresses were torn and dirty. Rope marks burned red around their wrists and ankles. A cowboy with a scarred chin sat on the wagon tongue, rifle across his knees, boots planted wide. Trader Fitch stood near the ramp, talking with 2 ranchers. He was big-bellied but broad-shouldered, with a neat beard and a fine vest that did not match the dust on his boots. He waved his handbill at them, laughing low. Fort Reed pays cash on the barrelhead, Fitch was saying. I risk my wagons getting those 2 out of the brush. They'll pay double for live ones after the last raids. What about Grey Hawk? One rancher asked. Word is closer than folks like to think. Fitch's mouth bent. Word is worth spit. I seen Apache smoke on the ridge 2 days back. Far off. They talk big, but the army's pushing them hard. This is the only way to keep our stock, our land. Take a few and show force. The rest stay off. That's how you tame a wild dog. Jess's hand curled at his side. The older girl's eyes slid over the men, sharp and hard. She caught Jesse's gaze. For a moment he saw past the doubt and fear to raw anger and something like cold judgment. She looked away, chin lifting, as if to say she would not beg from any of them. Fitch noticed him. You there? You want work or just free scenery? Sheriff said you needed hands, Jesse replied. I do, Fitch said. Cavalry's due by sundown, but folks are jumpy. I want 2 men on that wagon at all times, one inside the yard and one at the gate. 50 cents if you stay till the soldiers ride off. 50 cents might as well have been a fortune. Jessie glanced once more at the girls. The younger one shifted her tied hands in her lap, winced at the rope. What did they do? Jessie asked. Raided a rancher's line camp, Fitch said. Cut 2 men with knives, ran off stock. Got sloppy. My boys caught him running. The older girl's eyes flashed. She said something in Apache, sharp and fast. Fitch snorted. Call me liar, will you? He muttered. Jesse could not understand the words, but he heard the tone. It was not the voice of a raider caught in the act. It sounded like someone wronged and too proud to cry. I'll take the job, Jesse said. Where do you want me? By the wagon, Fitch said. You look too broke to run off with him. He laughed at his own joke and walked toward the office. Jesse stepped closer to the wagon. The scar-chin guard eyed him. You mind your business, the man said. Don't get soft. They'll cut your throat if you let him. Just here to watch, Jesse said. He leaned against the wheel on the side farthest from the office, where Fitch's voice dropped low as he argued with someone inside. The sun climbed higher, hot and white. Flies gathered near the girls' faces and wrists. The younger one, the smaller sister, blinked hard to keep from crying. You thirsty? Jesse asked, keeping his voice low. They watched him. The older girl tilted her head a fraction. Jesse picked up a tin cup from a barrel, pumped water from the well, and held it up. Scar-chin frowned. Boss said keep him alive till the army pays. Jesse cut in. Water keeps folks alive. The guard thought about that and shrugged. Fine, but don't get too close. Jesse climbed onto the spoke of the wheel, stretching up so he did not have to lean over the bar. He held the cup near the older girl's bound hands. She moved closer and drank, throat working, eyes never leaving his face. He passed the cup to the younger one. Water dribbled down her chin. She coughed, then whispered something in Apache to her sister. The older sister spoke in rough English. You help for money? She asked. Jesse swallowed. Man's got to eat. For money, you tie girls, she said. For money, they beat us. For money, they sell us. Her gaze did not waver. You same. Jesse's chest felt tight. He remembered another valley years back, when he was 19 and stupid. He had ridden with men who thought the same way Fitch talked, who had raided an Apache hunting camp in the night to scare them off a waterhole. He had gone along because he was young and hungry and did not want to be left behind. It had gone wrong fast. There had been shouting, gunfire, a burning wagon, and Jesse on his back with a busted leg, staring up at a warrior with a stone blade knife and a hawkbone necklace. The warrior had stood over him, breathing hard, blood on his arm. Jesse had thought his life was over. Instead, the man had taken a long, hard look at him and spared him. No words, no reason given. Just a small grunt, a turn back, and a muttered phrase Jesse did not understand. Later, an interpreter told him what that man had said. A man is what he does for the helpless. Jesse had never forgotten. He looked at the 2 girls on the wagon and knew one thing for sure. If he did nothing now, he would be no different from the men he still saw in his worst dreams. No, he said at last. I ain't the same as them. The older girl studied him for one more breath, then gave a barely visible nod, as if filing his answer away to weigh later. From the freight office, voices rose. Fitch argued with someone whose tone carried a sharper edge. A few words came out clear. Treaty, says Fort Reed, not a mine. You sign nothing. They pay better for labor than the army pays for prisoners. Jesse's jaw tightened. So that was it. Fitch wanted extra money from some mine agent, not just the bounty. He was holding the girls here, not racing them to Fort Reed, because he was waiting to turn them into slaves. The treaty notice on the sheriff's board was just ink. Money was real. The door opened. A man in a stiff coat stepped out, red-faced, and stalked away. Fitch watched him go, then spat in the dust and went back inside. Help me get those crates into the shed. Scotchin called to another hired hand. Boss wants everything locked up before them horses arrive. That left Jesse alone by the wagon for a few heartbeats. He climbed a little higher on the wheel, enough that his body blocked the girls from view of the yard. What's your names? He asked quietly. The older girl hesitated, then answered. Nita. The younger whispered, Luz. Where's your father? Nita's eyes flicked toward the hazy line of hills beyond town. He comes, she said, before the sun goes behind that ridge. She pointed with her bound hands toward the west. We leave sign for him. He always finds us. Jesse glanced that way. The ridge cut across the sky like a knife. The sun still rode well above it, but the afternoon had begun to lean. Time, like his money, was running. You left sign already? He asked. Smoked 2 mornings, Nita said. Broken branches by river. Stones on the trail. He knows. Jesse believed her. He had seen Apache scouts move like ghosts, leaving marks that no white man noticed. If Gray Hawk was her father, he would be close. Close meant dangerous. If he reached Dry Forks and saw his daughters tied on a wagon in the center of town, it would mean blood. Not because he was a beast, Jesse thought, but because that was how any father might act when pushed too far and given no voice in court. Listen, Jesse said, voice low. The man who brought you here, he isn't taking you to the soldiers. He's going to sell you to a mine. Hard work. Bad A. Men who don't care if you live. Nita's throat bubbed. Her eyes flashed. We know what white men do with girls, she said. Jesse's mind moved on rails laid down by old guilt. There was one thing he could do that might spare them. It might cost him his life, but that was a weight no heavier than letting this slide. The soldiers are coming by sundown, he said. Your father is coming by sundown. This town sits in the middle. If you're still on this wagon when they meet, men will die. Maybe you. Maybe your father. Maybe kids in that hotel. Maybe all 3. You talk much, Nita said, but her fingers flexed around the rope. I talk because I'm deciding whether to do a stupid thing, Jesse said, and I need you to know why. Footsteps came back across the yard. Jesse dropped down from the wheel and leaned against the wagon. His arm brushed the knife at his belt, the same knife that Hawkneck Warrior had given him before walking away all those years ago. It was nothing fancy, just bone and steel worn smooth by his hand. But on the handle, he could still feel shallow cuts, a pattern the carver had made. 3 small grooves like claw marks. Greyhawk. He did not let himself think any further than the next hour. Thinking past that could make a man freeze. The day burned on. Men shifted in and out of the yard. Fitch checked the harnesses. Deputies came by to see the prisoners and left again. Jesse stayed where he was, quiet, watching, learning the pattern of movements. He saw how the yard gate stuck a little when shut too hard, how the guard liked to stand near the well at the top of each hour, how Fitch always went inside before counting his crates, leaving a ledger open on the desk. Near mid-afternoon, Sheriff Cole came back. He walked around the wagon and looked at Nita and Luz. His brow furrowed as he scanned the rope marks. He turned to Fitch. You told me they were taken after a raid, Cole said. Fitch spread his hands. They were. Ask my men. Cole's gaze slid to Jesse. You saw the camp. I didn't, Jesse said carefully. But I heard your talk with that mine agent. That's none of your concern, Fitch snapped. It is if it breaks the treaty, Cole said. Fort Reed's word is the only thing keeping Gray Hawk from breaking this town in half. Fitch's eyes hardened. You want the truth? He asked. The truth is those people only respect force. We show weakness. They come for our herds and our families. I'm giving the army what it wants and making sure my men get paid. You can look down your nose, Sheriff, But coin is what keeps peace. Men with nothing in their pockets do reckless things. Like that one there. He jerked his thumb at Jesse. Strays like him cause trouble. Jesse said nothing. Cole stuttered him. Then the girls again. I'm not pleased you're holding them in town, the sheriff said quietly. You should have taken them straight to the fort. I would have, Fitch said, but the mine agent made a better offer. He was going to meet us at dusk and escort us on. He backed out. Now I do it your way. The soldiers take them. You get your treaty. I get my bounty. Our problem is gone. Cole did not look convinced. We'll talk after, he said. For now, I'll send one of my men to help you keep watch. I don't trust this situation. His eyes met Jesse's one more time. Then he walked off. Jesse followed Fitch to the office under the excuse of needing a bandage for his chafed wrist. Inside, the room smelled of tobacco and ledgers. On the desk lay the open account book. Jesse saw neat lines of ink. Under a list of freight items, down near the bottom, someone had written, 2 Indian girls, sound, for transfer to Greystone Mine, $3 a head. There was no mention of Fort Reed. No mention of treaty. Just a line of script that turned 2 human lives into stock. Jesse's stomach twisted. That mine agent sure runs you hard, he said, keeping his tone lazy. Fitch looked up from a drawer he was rummaging through. It runs the whole territory hard, he said. You want that bandage or not? Yes, sir. Jesse took the strip of cloth Fitch tossed him. As the trader turned to dig for salve, Jesse let his fingers brush the ledger page. The paper was thick but not stiff. With a quick motion, he lifted the edge, tore along a line between entries, and folded the strip into his palm. He tucked it into his boot while wrapping the bandage. Fitch never looked up. That scrap of paper, Jesse knew, might be the only proof that Fitch had broken the law he pretended to serve. Proof that could matter to a sheriff, to a fort commander, maybe even to a man like Greyhawk. If Jesse lived long enough to show it. He walked back into the yard, feeling the new weight in his boot and the old weight on his belt. Nita watched him. For the first time, a thin thread of curiosity threaded her gaze. The sun slid lower. Shadows from the buildings stretched long across the packed dirt. Men glanced more often toward the western ridge, where the light made a hard, bright line. You said your father's coming by sunset, Jesse murmured when he was close enough. Yes, Nita said. He knows we are taken. We left sign. He finds. He always finds. Then we can't wait for the soldiers to march in first, Jesse said. His voice went dry. I'm going to get you off this wagon before that happens. Lucy's eyes widened. Nita's narrowed. Why? Because I owe a debt, he said. And because if I don't, men who had nothing to do with this might die. I've seen what happens when scared men and angry men meet in the same street. You think he will not come if we are gone? Nita asked. I think he will look different if his daughters are not in chains, Jesse answered. I think he might talk instead of shoot. Maybe. Nita held his gaze for a long moment. Then she nodded once, a spare, sharp motion. What do we do? The next time they move this wagon, Jesse said, I'll spook the horses. When they jump, men will be looking at hooves, not hands. I'll cut your rope. There's a gap in the fence beyond that stack of barrels. Behind it is a narrow passage and then my rented corral. From there, there's a dry wash that leads out to the mesquite. You know how to follow a wash. Nita gave him a look that said the question was almost insult. We know land better than you know your hand. Good, Jesse said. Then when you're clear, you go to the hills. Leave sign for your father where he can see it. I'll try to reach you before he does. You think you can find us? Luz asked softly. I think I can follow someone who wants to be found, Jesse said. And I think your father already has eyes on this town. Even as he spoke, he felt it, a prickle on the back of his neck, like he was being watched from far beyond the fence. He glanced toward the ridge. For half a breath, he thought he saw a small, dark shape outlined against the sky, as still as a cut rock. Then it was gone. Scotchin came back, wiping his brow. Boss wants the wagon pulled up front, he called. Soldiers will want to see what they are taking. Then let's get them moving, Jesse said. His voice came out steady. His hands did not feel steady. They hitched 2 tired horses to the wagon. Jesse took the lead rope. Scotchin walked beside the wheel. Men moved aside as the wagon creaked toward the front of the freight house. Folks were out on the sidewalks now, watching with tight mouths and wary eyes. At the turn by the well, Jesse let his fingers twist the rein just enough to pinch the near horse's bit. At the same time, he kicked a loose bucket under the hoof. The animal flinched at the clatter, then reared. The other horse lurched sideways. Everything in the yard focused on a moment that Jesse had counted on. Scotchin swore and grabbed for the harness. Men near the well jumped back. The wagon jolted. Jesse moved fast. He stepped up on the wheel, body pressed close to the board so the girls were hidden from most eyes. His knife flashed once, low and quick, slicing through the rope around Nita's wrists. The cut was clean. He dropped his hand to the bonds at Lucy's ankles and sawed twice. Now, he hissed. Down behind the barrels. Don't run in the open. Nita did not waste a second. She slipped off the wagon bed, hitting the ground in a crouch, hands already pulling at the rope around her ankles. Luz tumbled after her. Their bodies vanished behind the stacked crates just as the near horse's hoof landed with a thud that shook the wagon. Scotchin regained control of the reins. Easy, he barked. Easy, damn you. The horses settled. The wagon rocked into place. Jesse stepped down, breathing hard. Stupid move, Scotchin snarled. You trying to get us all killed. Horse spooked, Jesse said. Maybe it smells Apaches on the wind same as everyone else. Some men laughed nervously. Their eyes were on the animals, the yard, the ridge. No one looked behind the crates. Almost no one. A young cowhand near the corner frowned, scanning the wagon bed. He squinted. Hey, he said. Where'd? His hand went to his revolver. Jesse moved without thinking it through. He knocked the man's arm aside, and the shot went off wild, biting a splinter from the freight office wall. The yard erupted in shouting. Fitch burst from the doorway, gun in hand. What are you idiots doing? He roared. His gaze snapped to the wagon bed, and his face drained of color. Where are my prisoners? Scotchin spun around, saw the empty boards, and swore so loud it cut the shouts. It was him, the young cowhand yelled, pointing at Jesse. He bumped me when I saw they were gone. Every gun in the yard swung toward Jesse at once. Easy, he said, lifting his hands, knife still hidden behind his wrist. The barrel of Fitch's pistol stayed at his chest. You Indian-loving son of a... Fitch's voice shook with rage. You cost me money. You cost this town its safety. Sheriff. Cole came running from up the street, hand on his own revolver. What happened? He freed them, Fitch said, pointing at Jesse. Ask anyone here. My boys had things under control until this tramp started trouble. He's working with Grey Hawk. I guarantee it. Cole's jaw flexed. He looked at the young cowhand. You see him cut them loose. I saw him by the wagon. And then the girls were gone, the cowhand said. Then he knocked my arm when I went for my gun. That all you saw? Cole asked. That's enough, Fitch snarled. You going to wait till we're all dead? Put him in irons. Jesse didn't waste breath arguing. The story in the yard already ran ahead of him. Men in tight fear did not listen well. He let Cole take his pistol, let the deputy clamp irons around his wrists. I'll talk to you inside, Cole said. Move. They walked down the street to the jail, folks pulling back as if Jesse carried a sickness. He did not meet their eyes. He felt the scrap of ledger paper in his boot with each step, like a small nerve of hope and doom. The jail was a small building with 2 cells and a desk. It smelled of ink, sweat, and scrubbed floors. Cole unlocked a cell and nodded toward it. In, he said. Jesse stepped inside. The iron door clanged shut behind him. Tell me the truth, Cole said. Did you free those girls? Yes, Jesse said. His voice was level. I cut their ropes while your men were busy with the horses. Why? Because Fitch plans to sell them to a mine, not to the army, Jesse said. I saw it in his ledger. 2 Indian girls for Greystone Mine. $3 a head. That breaks the treaty on your wall. Cole's mouth tightened. You saw wrong. I tore out the page, Jesse said. It's in my boot. He lifted his bound hands. Cole hesitated, then stepped forward, bent, and pulled back the cuff of Jess's boot. His fingers found the folded paper. He opened it, read the words, and went very still. His eyes lifted. "If this is true," he said slowly, "Fitch lied to me. And if Greyhawk finds out, we won't have enough men to hold this town, even with a squad from Fort Reed." "You'll notice that he keeps his word," Jesse said. "You think he doesn't know already?" Cole stayed at the scrap of paper, then at Jesse. "Why help them?" he asked. "Quieter now. What's it to you?" Jesse looked past him at the small barred window. Beyond it, the sky burned pale. "Years back," he said, "I rode with men who did bad things to Apache. I went along because I was hungry and dumb. One of their warriors had every right to finish me when I lay there with a busted leg. He didn't. He let me live, gave me a knife, and walked away." He turned his wrist so Cole could see the simple bone handle through the bars. The shallow grooves caught the light. "He said something I didn't understand then," Jesse went on. "Later I learned it. A man is what he does for the helpless. I've done enough of the wrong kind of things. I'm not letting those girls vanish into some hole so Fitch can fill his pocket." Cole's face worked as if something heavy shifted behind it. "You put this town at risk," he said. "I tried to keep it from being in the middle of a war," Jesse said. "There's a difference." "Either way, you broke the law," Cole said. "Right now I've got a traitor with half the town behind him saying you're working with raiders. I've got no Apache to speak for you. And I've got soldiers coming who don't much care for complicated stories. I can't just open this cell." Jesse nodded once. "Then you hold me. But don't ignore that page." Cole folded the paper and slid it into his vest pocket. "I'll talk to Fitch," he said. "You stay put." He walked out, leaving Jesse with the fading light and the sound of his own pulse. In the hills beyond town, Nita and Luz ran until their lungs burned and their legs shook. They slipped through the gap in the fence, darted down the narrow alley behind the livery, and found the small gate Jesse had described. The corral beyond held only one old mare and a broken cart, just as he had said. They did not stop there. They ducked through the far side, slid into the dry wash, and followed it out of sight of the town. Creosote bushes scratched their arms. Gravel shifted under their bare feet. When they finally stopped, hidden behind a low rise of rock and thorn, Nita turned and looked back. The town lay small in the distance, a cluster of rough shapes against the earth. She thought of the man who had cut their ropes and then stepped in front of a gun, taking blame with open eyes. "He will be killed," Luz whispered. "Maybe," Nita said. Her voice came out hoarse. "Maybe not. He knew land. He knew about Father." "We should go home," Luz said. "Father will find him." "Father finds sign," Nita said. "We must leave sign." They climbed the rise and looked for a place where eyes from the ridge might see. Nita found a scrubby willow near the wash. She snapped one branch halfway, letting it hang low, leaves bruised. Then she gathered 3 stones and set them in a small triangle in the open dirt, point toward town. It was a pattern Greyhawk had taught her long ago. Blood taken, blood held, blood yet to be judged. "He will understand," she said. "Will he be angry we left?" Luz asked. "He will be more angry if we sit and wait to be sold," Nita replied. "He says a hawk must use its wings. We used ours." They turned toward the hills, following game trails only they could read. Above them, on a high slope, 2 Apache scouts watched in silence. They had seen the white man at the wagon. They had seen his knife flash and the girls drop to the ground. They had seen him stand still when guns turned on him. The scouts did not move. They let Nita and Luz pass beneath them and then slipped away like shadows, carrying what they had seen to the man who waited beyond the far ridge. Back in Dry Forks, Cole walked to Fitch's office, the folded ledger page burning his pocket. The trader was at his desk, counting coins into a strongbox. "You didn't tell me about Greystone Mine," Cole said without preamble. Fitch's eyes flicked up, then back to the money. The mine agent backed out. He said, "Doesn't matter now. The girls are gone. Thanks to your new friend. You wrote them up as property for the mine," Cole said, laying the scrap of paper on the desk. Fitch's face stilled. For a moment only his jaw muscle moved. "You been rifling my books, Sheriff?" he asked. "You told me you were taking them straight to the fort," Cole said. "You swore you were acting under the notice on my wall. Now I find you broke federal order for side coin." Fitch leaned back, eyes cold. And what will you do about it? Hang me in front of the church while Grey Hawk tears your town apart. Those girls are gone. The army will want someone to blame. You have a stranger in your cell. Don't be a fool. This mistake doesn't have to matter. We can both let it drop. Cole stayed at him. Years of compromise, of looking away from small wrongs to hold back larger ones, weighed at his shoulders. He had seen too many graves dug in hard ground. If I let this drop, he said, then my badge not worth the tin it's hammered from. And if you don't, Fitch said softly, you lose more than a badge. You lose this town. I pay for half the goods that keep these people fed. I bring the army money through, hey. You turn on me, and you stand alone. Think about that. Cole thought. Then he folded the paper and slid it back into his vest. I'll think, he said. But if the fort commander sees this before I do anything, it won't be my choice anymore. He left before Fitch could answer. Outside, the sun edged closer to the ridge. Heat pressed down like a hand. Men on the street glanced toward the west more often now. Horses stamped and snorted. The air felt charged, like the breath before lightning. In his cell, Jesse paced the short length, counting steps, listening. He heard the murmur of voices, the clink of gear, the distant clop of a small group of riders heading out of town. Fitch's men, he guessed, going to hunt for the girls. He heard none of the hard jangle that meant cavalry. He tested the lock on the cell door. It was solid. The gap between the bars was just wide enough for his forearm. He pulled the small piece of metal he had kept tucked in the seam of his belt, a leftover from fixing a broken spur. He had used it as a tool more than once to pry stubborn nails. Now it might serve one last job. He slid it into the lock, feeling for the pins. He had watched the deputy turn that key enough times to know how far it twisted. His hands were steady not because he felt calm, but because fear had gone past a point and settled into a hard, quiet place inside him. The first pin shifted with a tiny click. Then the second. The third took longer. He waked the metal back and forth, listening like he would listen for a rattler under a rock. At last the lock gave. The bolt retracted with a soft scrape. Jesse eased the door open an inch, then another. The deputy's snores drifted from the front room. The man had put his boots on the desk and his hat over his face. Jesse stepped out of the cell and crossed the room, boots silent on the worn floorboards. He paused by the desk long enough to scratch 2 words on a scrap of paper. Ask Fitch. He left it by the deputy's elbow, then slipped out the back door into the alley. His mare still stood in the rented corral behind the livery, head low, tail flicking at flies. The stable boy, Tom, looked up as Jesse entered. Hey, he said, thought you were working for Mr. Fitch. That changed, Jesse said. I need the mare. Tom chewed his lip. Sheriff said, you remember when your PA's wagon stuck in the creek last month? Jesse asked, who got under the wheel with you and lifted till your back near broke? Tom frowned. You did. Didn't take a dime, Jesse said. Now I'm asking something back. I need the mare, and I need you not to say where I went for a while. You do that, and you'll still have a sheriff in this town tomorrow. Tom hesitated, then nodded. I never saw you, he muttered. Jesse swung into the saddle, thanked him, and nudged the mare toward the gate. He kept to the side streets as he rode out of town, hat pulled low, heart banging a steady beat in his ears. He picked up the dry wash beyond the corral and followed it out into open land. Hoof prints marked the dust, small, barefooted ones that matched what he'd seen under the wagon, mixed with the deeper cuts of his own boots from earlier when he had checked the path. They headed toward the low hills. He followed. The land changed as he rode. Scrub thickened, stones jutted from the dirt like broken teeth. The air smelled of sage and dry heat. The sun leaned toward the ridge, turning shadows long and blue. Jesse dismounted where the wash narrowed and continued on foot, leading the mare. He did not want the sound of hooves bouncing off the rocks to carry too far. He moved slower now, eyes on the ground, looking for the small signs Nita might have left. He found the broken willow branch first. Leaves wilted, bark torn. It hung at an angle that did not match the wind. Smart girl, he muttered. Near it, 3 stones lay in a small, deliberate triangle, point toward town. That pattern tugged at memory. Another trail, another time, when he had seen similar signs on a ridge and asked the interpreter what they meant. Blood taken, blood held, blood waiting, the man had said. It fit what was happening now with a neatness that made Jesse's throat tight. He followed the direction the triangle pointed away from, scanning for more marks. A scuffed patch of dirt there, a bent tuft of grass there. They weren't trying to vanish from their own people. They were leaving enough for the right eyes to see. Those eyes were on him, too. He could feel it. On the high shoulders of the hills, in the gaps between rocks, in the thin shade of mesquite, there were people watching. He saw nothing clear enough to call a face, but every sense insisted on it. He kept his hands away from his gun and his movements slow. He led the mare like a man visiting a sick friend, not like one hunting. After a time, he rounded a boulder and found Nita and Luz crouched in the shadow of a rock shelf. Luz held a small pistol in both hands, barrel pointed straight at his chest. Her fingers shook, but her eyes did not. Nita's gaze moved past him, checking the trail. He stopped and lifted his hands, palm open. "You're good at leaving sign," he said. "Your father will find it." "Why are you here?" Nita asked. "I walked out of a cell for this," Jesse said. "They're going to say I helped you. The sheriff already knows Fitch lies. If I run, I look guilty and scared. If I find you, I might still get us all through this with less blood." "How?" Luz whispered, gun still aimed. "By meeting your father before men with uniforms meet him," Jesse said. "By showing him a knife and a paper and hoping he cares about either." Nita's eyes flicked to the handle at his belt. "That knife," she said. "It is carved in our way." Jesse nodded. "A warrior spared my life once. He wore a hawk bone around his neck. He gave me this and walked away. I don't know if he was your father." Nita stepped closer, gaze sharpening. She reached toward the knife, stopped short, then let her fingers hover over the grooves on the handle. Her lips moved, whispering the name of someone only she could see. "Where is your father?" Jesse asked. She pulled her hand back. "He waits," she said. "We told him, if we are caught, we will leave signs for him near the big cottonwood by the high ridge. He will come there. You know that place." "I saw the cottonwood from town," Jesse said. "Biggest thing in miles. He'll want high ground to see who he's dealing with." "Why should we take you there?" Luz asked. Her voice held anger now, not fear. "You are white. You help, but you also work for the man who took us." "I worked for him for 2 hours," Jesse said. "Long enough to learn what he planned. Long enough to decide I couldn't let it stand. You saw that choice. Your father will ask what you saw. If I'm there, I can answer, too. If I'm not, he only hears what Fitch says. And Fitch will lie." Nita watched him, weighing. In that moment, Jesse understood she was not just a scared girl. She was her father's eyes and ears in this land. "You are afraid," she said. "Yes," Jesse said. "I like breathing." "But you still came," she said. "Yes." She looked at Luz. They exchanged a few words in Apache. Luz's shoulders slowly eased. The muzzle of the pistol dipped. "Go in front," Nita said. "We follow. You try to run, I shoot." "Fair," Jesse said. He led the mare up the slope, toward the lone cottonwood that stood half a mile ahead, its bare branches reaching into the sky like worn fingers. The sun was sliding down the western edge now, light turning soft and red. The clock he had set in his mind, and that Nita had set with her words, ticked down with each breath. As they climbed, a shot cracked in the distance. The sound echoed across the rocks. Then another. Nita stiffened. "Fitch man," she said. "He will not stop." "I figured," Jesse said. "He can't afford to let you vanish. Not with that paper in the sheriff's pocket." They moved faster. Gravel slid under their feet, but they did not fall. The mare snorted and blew hard, flanks damp. They reached a narrow saddle below the cottonwood, a place where the ridge fell away on both sides. It gave a view of the town in the distance and the rolling land beyond. It also made a fine place for an ambush. "Stay behind the mare," Jesse said. "If someone shoots, I'd rather they hit me or the saddle than you." "You talk like father," Luz muttered. He almost smiled. Voices drifted up from the lower slope behind them. Men swore, urged their horses up, cursed the rocks. Jesse recognized Fitch's nasal bark among them. "Move to the other side," Jesse said, guiding the mare toward a shallow rock shelf near the cottonwood. "We'll let them come to the open ground. Less places to hide." They slipped into the shelf's thin cover. Jesse drew his pistol, checked the cylinder. 3 rounds left. He had hoped for more. Fitch and 2 men rode into view. Horses lathered, faces set. One was the young cowhand from the yard. The other was a wiry trailman with a rifle. They pulled up 10 paces short when they saw Jesse, Nita, and Luz by the tree. Well, Fitch called. "You didn't run far, did you, Harlan?" "I wasn't running," Jesse said. "I was waiting. For Greyhawk." Fitch sneered, hoping he'd thank you for giving him back his property. Nita's jaw clenched. "We are not property," she said. "You are to whoever holds the paper," Fitch said. "And my paper says you belong to the mine till you drop." "It also says you broke the fort's order," Jesse said. "Sheriff has that page now." Fitch's smile thinned. "That sheriff won't live long enough to show anyone." The wiry man shifted his rifle. "Boss!" "Shut up," Fitch snapped. The young cowhand licked his lips. "Mr. Fitch, maybe we should." "Quiet," Fitch said. He swung his gun toward Nita, then toward Luz. "You two get on my horse," he ordered. "You, Harlan, hand me your gun and kneel there by the edge. I'll tell the fort you were working with raiders. They'll hang you and thank me for clearing the problem." "They might," Jesse said. "But there's someone else you're forgetting." He nodded toward the ridge above them. Fitch glanced up. At first he saw nothing but rock and shadow. Then his eyes picked out shapes, figures on the lip of the ridge, outlined against the reddening sky. Still, silent, watching. His face drained of color. "Damn it," he whispered. Apache warriors lined the crest in a broken arc. They held bows and rifles, but none were aimed yet. At their center stood a man whose hair was streaked with gray and tied back with rawhide. Around his neck hung a bone carving shaped like a hawk in flight. Greyhawk. He had not appeared by magic. He had followed the signs Nita left, the smoke she had set, the broken branches by the river, the triangle of stones, the whispers of his scouts who had watched Jesse cut the ropes. He stood on that ridge now because every decision each person had made since dawn had carried him to this spot. He lifted one hand, palm outward. The warriors did not move, but the air seemed to tighten. Fitch swallowed hard. He shifted in his saddle, glancing between Jesse and the man on the ridge. "Looks like you've got an audience," Jesse said quietly. Greyhawk spoke in Apache first, voice low but kind. Nita answered, words quick. Jess could not follow, but he heard his own name in the middle of the stream like a stone. Then Greyhawk addressed Jesse in rough English. "You carry my knife," he said. His gaze dropped to the bone handle at Jesse's belt. "Where did you take it?" "You gave it to me," Jesse said. "Years back, in the canyon by the broken mesquite. I was with men who raided your camp. I was hurt. You stood over me. You had every right to cut my throat. You didn't." Greyhawk's eyes narrowed, memory moving behind them. "You were the boy with fear in his eyes," he said slowly. "You could not pull the trigger when the others fired on my brother. You only watched. I counted that. I spayed you and told you to do better with your life than follow men who howl. You did," Jesse said. "I haven't done as much better as I should. But I tried today." "He cut our ropes," Nita called. "He took blame. He comes here when he could run." Greyhawk listened, then looked down at Fitch. "And you," he said. "You took my daughters when they visited a friend's camp. Not raiders, not thieves. Children bringing meat and herbs. You tied them, and you beat the younger when she spoke our words. That is what they tell me." "They lie," Fitch said quickly. "They are raiders. Ask the sheriff. He'll tell you. I'm following the fort's orders." "Your orders," Jesse said, "were to turn any prisoners over to Fort Reed. You wrote in your book that you were selling them to the Greystone mine. Sheriff has that page." He saw it with his own eyes. Greyhawk's gaze slid toward town, where a small knot of riders now approached. Dust rose from their hooves. At their head rode Sheriff Cole, hat low, rifle in his hand. Behind him came 6 soldiers in blue, sabers glinting. Fitch's smile came back, thin and sharp. "You see," he said. Now the army is hay. Sheriff knows who keeps his town safe. He won't listen to some saddle tramp or a pack of savages. Cole reined in at the edge of the saddle, taking in the scene at a glance. The girls by the tree, Jesse beside them, Fitch with gun drawn, Apaches on the ridge, the soldiers behind him with hands near carbines. Everyone hold, Cole said. His voice carried steel. No one fires unless I say. He looked up at Greyhawk. You have my word, Chief. No one shoots first from my side. Greyhawk's mouth was a straight line. You gave your word on paper, he said, to turn any of my people you captured to the fort. This man, he jerked his chin at Fitch, broke that word. He planned to sell my daughters as labor. Do you keep your word to men like him, or to the ink you let the army nail on your wall? Cole took a slow breath. He reached into his vest and pulled out the folded scrap of ledger paper. I saw this, he said. Jesse Harlan told me what it was. I wanted to think it didn't matter, but it does. He unfolded it, read the words aloud so the soldiers could hear. The captain at his side frowned. That's a violation of standing order, the captain said. We don't use civilians as brokers for prisoners, bounty or not. I brought them in under fire, Fitch snapped. I risked my life. You weren't there, Captain. Without men like me, you'd have more trouble on your hands. You also tried to make a private sale, Cole said. His voice stayed calm. You lied to me. You lied to the fort. And you broke the terms that hold whatever peace we have. He turned his horse a little, putting himself between Fitch and Greyhawk's line of sight. It was a small move, but it said something about who he was backing. I should arrest you, Fitch, Cole said. Right here, right now, for fraud, kidnapping, and breaking federal order. You arrest me, this town starves, Fitch hissed. Who brings supplies through hay? Who keeps money moving? You'll lose more than your badge. Maybe, Cole said, but I'll lose my self-respect if I don't. And I'm done with that. He swung down from his saddle, rifle steady. Drop your gun. Fitch's eyes flicked from the barrel to Cole's face, then to the line of Apache on the ridge. Fear and fury twisted his features. You think I'll let you throw me to them, he snarled. I won't hang for this while you get to play the hero sheriff. He jerked his pistol toward Cole's chest. Jesse had expected that. He had watched Fitch all day, seen how he reacted when challenged. He knew men like this always went for their own skin first. Jesse shoved Nita aside and lunged, ramming his shoulder into Fitch's arm as the man fired. The shot went high, slamming into the cottonwood's trunk and sending a shower of bark. Fitch staggered. The young cowhand jerked his reins in panic. The wiry man grabbed for his rifle, eyes wide. On the ridge, Greyhawk flicked his fingers. There was a soft hiss and thump as two arrows flew. One buried itself in the ground beside Fitch's boot. The other ripped through the wiry man's sleeve, knocking the rifle from his grasp without touching flesh. I said no one fires first, Greyhawk called. I did not say we let bullets find our hearts. Fitch wrestled with Jesse, trying to bring his gun to bear. Jesse's wound from the yard burned where the cowhand's earlier bullet had grazed him, but he held on, teeth gritted. Drop it, Jesse gasped. Fitch drove an elbow into his ribs. Jess saw spots for a second. The gun muzzle slid closer to his side. A shot cracked. Fitch jerked, eyes going wide. His pistol slipped from his fingers. He stared down at his shoulder, where blood blossomed through his shirt. Cole lowered his rifle, smoke drifting from the barrel. Next one goes through your heart, the sheriff said. You're under arrest. The young cowhand froze, hands trembling. I didn't sign up for this, he whispered. He let his own gun fall. The soldiers shifted, but the captain raised a hand. Stand down, he ordered. We're not here to start a war. We're here to uphold the fort's orders. Cole kicked Fitch's drop pistol away and snapped irons onto his wrists. Nate Fitch, he said, voice formal. You're arrested for kidnapping, fraud, and violation of federal treaty. You'll answer to the fort commander and the judge in Prescott. Fitch spat blood. You're dead, Beringer, he muttered. You in this town. That savage will tear you apart once I'm locked up. Greyhawk regarded him for a moment, then looked at Cole. Does your law punish him? He asked. It will, Cole said. I will ride with the soldiers to the fort and speak to it myself. I will give them this paper. I will tell them what he did. If they fail to act, then that will be on their heads. Greyhawk considered. The ridge behind him stayed tense. And my daughters? He asked. They were taken outside of any fight, Cole said. They weren't raiders. Your daughter told me they were visiting a friend's camp. That makes them civilians, not prisoners. The fort has no right to hold them. They go with you. The captain hesitated, then nodded once. We don't want a war over 2 girls if the capture was illegal, he said. Take your family, Chief. We'll take the trader. Greyhawk's shoulders loosened a fraction. He turned to Nita and Luz. Come, he said in Apache. They did not move right away. Nita stepped to Jess's side instead. Her eyes met his. You are foolish, she said. Often, Jesse agreed, breathing hard. You freed us for no money, she said. You left your cage to find us, knowing father might kill you. You stand in front of guns not pointed at you. I owe a debt, Jesse said. Maybe now it's less. Nita glanced at Greyhawk, then back at Jesse. He will remember, she said. So will we. Luz stepped forward and took Jess's hand in both of hers. Her fingers were small and warm. She pressed her forehead against his knuckles, then let go and walked to her father. Greyhawk watched the gesture. His face barely changed, but something in his eyes softened. He walked his horse closer to Jesse, stopping just out of arm's reach. You were a boy when I spared you, he said. You are a man now. You made a choice today that put your life in the teeth of 2 worlds. I see that. My people see it. He reached down and unclasped the hawkbone pendant from around his neck. For a heartbeat, Jesse thought he meant to hand it to him. Instead, Greyhawk leaned forward and laid his palm on Jess's shoulder, the pendant resting against the back of his hand for that brief touch. You carry my knife, he said. You do not need my feather. His mouth twitched, almost a smile. But you have my respect. He straightened and spoke in Apache. At his word, the warriors along the ridge lowered their weapons and moved their horses into a single line. For one quiet, steady moment, every man among them swung down and went to one knee, heads bowed toward Jesse and Cole. It was not long, not showy, just a breath, here and gone. Then they rose, mounted again, and began to move away along the ridge, circling back toward the deeper canyons where their camp waited. Nita and Luz rode beside their father, glancing back once, twice. Jesse watched them go, chest tight. The sun slipped behind the ridge at last, throwing the land into deep gold and shadow. The clock that had pressed on him all day winked out with the light. Cole stepped up beside him. You realize you almost got yourself shot from 3 directions at once, the sheriff said. I noticed, Jesse said. Cole huffed a short breath that might have been a laugh. You also saved this town from burning. And you helped me find my spine again. I didn't do it for you, Jesse said. I know, Cole said. That's what makes it real. The soldiers took charge of Fitch, binding his wound, tying him over a horse. The trader cursed and threatened, but no one listened. The captain glanced at Jesse. You could have walked away, he said. Instead, you ran toward the trouble. That's rare. I wasn't trying to be rare, Jesse said. Just trying not to be what I used to be. The captain nodded once. If you ever want steady work, the fort can always use scouts who understand both sides of the line. Men who know how to read sign and keep their heads. Jesse shrugged. Maybe. Cole put a hand on his own holster, then on the badge at his chest. Oh, he said, this town could use a man who can walk into the middle of a mess and not start shooting right away. I could use a deputy who thinks before he draws. Pays poor. Works worse. But it's honest. Jesse looked back toward Dry Forks. The town was still there, small and worn and stubborn, but the air around it felt different now. Less like a powder keg, more like a place that might choose better paths if someone gave it a shove when needed. I'm broke, he said, and I like eating regular. That's not a no, Cole said. It's not a yes yet, either, Jesse replied. But I'll ride back with you and see how the place looks when their temper's cool. You still want me tomorrow? We'll talk. Cole nodded. Fair enough. They rode back toward town in a slow column. Soldiers with their prisoner, the sheriff and his deputy, A weary bay mare under a man who had been ready to lose everything that morning and had walked away with something he could not name yet. At the edge of town, by the same half-dead cottonwood where Jesse had tied his mare, he reined in and looked back one last time. The ridge lay dark against the sky now. The Apache riders long gone. No dust trail to show where they had gone. Only the memory of that brief kneel, that small, fierce line of men bowing toward him, stayed bright in his mind. He reached down and touched the bone handle of his knife. It felt different now, somehow heavier and lighter at once. The grooves under his thumb were the same, but the meaning had deepened. A man is what he does for the helpless. He had been a boy when he heard those words. Today, with empty pockets and a sore arm and a town full of weary eyes waiting to see what came next, he finally started to live them. He clicked his tongue and nudged the mare forward. As he rode down the main street of Dry Forks, lamps flickered to life in windows and doorways. People watched him pass, their faces hard to read. Some saw trouble. Some saw something else. Jesse did not wave or tip his hat. He simply rode alongside Sheriff Cole, matching his pace, the two of them heading toward a small jail and a larger future, one step at a time. Behind them, far out in the growing dark, a hawk wheeled once above the ridge, then glided toward the deep country where the Apache fires burned unseen.